All right, well, we're at 12 o'clock here in the Pacific Coast. So why don't we get started? Okay. Looks like we'll get a few more people trickling in here as well. Okay. Well, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining today, and hello. So thank you for joining us for the first Circles of AI PlaySpace for 2025. And really excited to have everybody back here after our December break. So we took the month of December off because everyone's busy with family stuff and the holiday break. So nice to be able to get back into this. All right. So today we're going to discuss some of the big AI announcements that happened in December. And if you're like me, your December was crazy. So it was there was a lot that happened, and it was hard to keep track of what was going on. So this will be a good chance to catch up on some of those developments. And as well, we're going to spend some time playing with the new AI reasoning models. OpenAI and Google have released a couple of new models, and so we're going to apply those to some common business problems and look at how that works and do some experimentation. For those who are joining us for the first time, I just want to take a minute and share a little bit about the Circles of AI community and our mission. And so at Circles of AI, we help small, medium-sized business leaders unlock the potential for artificial intelligence. And so we run these community events as a regular activity. It's intended to help demystify AI and how this all works. So we're going to do demonstrations of things like how to use this to incorporate into your business operations, to scale your activities, boost growth, and gain a competitive edge. And we're really focused on doing this from a business perspective, and we'll cover a little bit of technical, but we're trying to stay out of the technical details. So whether you're exploring AI for making better decisions or for automating activities, optimizing your marketing, or improving your customer experiences, we try to demonstrate those things and make AI practical and approachable. So if you haven't yet, please sign up for our mailing list at circlesofai.com. So from there, you'll get event reminders, as well as be able to access the session recordings. And we also have a WhatsApp community discussion forum that you can access from there. All right, a quick note before we dive in. Rochelle is on vacation this month, so she's taking a well-deserved break, but she'll be back in February. So for the next few sessions, you're going to have to put up with me. So hopefully that's okay. All right. Oh, and before I forget, I'll share the link to the slides in the chat so everybody has access to that. All right. Okay, so you can access the slides there, and those include some of the prompts that we'll be using as part of the demonstration with the reasoning models. Okay. All right, let me share my screen and we'll get started here. Okay, so what we're going to cover today is we're going to go and do a quick review of some of the key December AI developments and their impact from a small and medium-sized business perspective in terms of how does this actually impact your business and what, like, why should you care? And then, so we'll spend about half the session on that, cover those news items, and just have some discussion and talk about implications of some of these things. And then for the second half of the session, we're going to do a hands-on activity where we're going to play around with some of the reasoning models. So we'll use ChatGPT 01, which is only accessible if you have a paid ChatGPT account. So I'll demonstrate that from my side. We'll also explore the Google Gemini 2.0 model. And this is accessible to everybody. You can use it for free through the Google AI Studio, and I'll show you how to do that. And so we're going to cover a couple scenarios, and then we can either do a live one, or we'll kind of figure out how to play around with these things. Okay. And then I want to make sure this is a really open and engaging conversation, so that if you've got questions or you've got a comment or something that you think is really cool that you've seen in the news that you want to bring up, feel free to jump in. You can either raise your hand or come off mute and just join in conversation. Okay, so don't be shy, just jump in and we'll have a good session today. All right. So I've kind of broken news into 3 sections. I'm going to start with productivity and efficiency activities, news items, and some of the things that I see as really impactful for internal business processes and scaling of your activities internally. And then we'll cover some other ones around content creation and some other announcements as well. All right, so one of the things that was interesting in December is OpenAI had 12 announcements. They called it their 12 days of OpenAI. So there was a lot of news out there. That being said, not all of it was impactful for small and medium-sized businesses. There's a lot of like developer and very technical applications that they put out. So I'm just going to highlight 3 that I think are really important though. So the first one is ChatGPT Projects. And so what this is it's an ability to be able to collect your chats together, your conversations into a project and organize them, but also bring in files with knowledge so that you can have an overall consolidated conversation, so that as you're interacting with the ChatGPT, it understands the other conversations as well as the files that you've brought in. So you can have a cohesive conversation now, instead of having every conversation where you have to kind of bring knowledge across to each one. So this is really helpful for collecting together and building a bigger context. And it can also be helpful if you've got a Teams account, you can collaborate with other people on your team as they bring in conversations and other files. So this is a really nice way to do that. This is similar to Anthropic, the Claude model has a similar idea around projects. I can't remember exactly the naming of it, but these are similar ideas of collecting common activities together. So there's a link there if you want to check out more details about that announcement and how that works. As I mentioned, Google had a whole bunch of news around their Gemini 2.0 models. So these are advanced models that are primarily around like multimodal interaction. So this is getting into vision, being able to upload video and have it interpret video or audio, and interact not just from a text-based way. So Google's doing a little bit of catch up with OpenAI. So some of these models, like the Gemini 2.0 Flash, which is their core product, this is a little bit like ChatGPT 4.0. So if you've been using it and you know how you can upload a picture and it will be able to analyze that picture and give you a description, or you can show it a video and it will be able to understand what's in the video. The big benefit to Gemini here is that it has a massive context window. And what context window is basically the amount of attention it can put on the files you give it. So it's something like 10 times bigger than what you can do with ChatGPT. So you can upload massive amounts of information and have it be able to understand within one conversation what that's all doing. And in addition to that, you're also the reasoning model, the Gemini 2.0 thinking was another big announcement, which is Google's only the second company to come out with that. Okay. All right, and then the next one is the ChatGPT 01 reasoning model. So this is something that's been out for a while, but the big announcements in December were they've taken it out of their preview and it's now widely available, and they've increased the access to it in terms of the number of conversations you can have with the 01 reasoning model. And what 01 does is it's really good at problem solving in terms of thinking through step by step how to solve a problem and be able to explain its reasoning for the steps. And so it's able to operate at a very high level of like almost PhD level in math and coding and science and engineering type problems, which is where they're doing all the intelligence tests. But it's also really good at solving business case studies and things like that. And so we'll explore how that looks. The other big news is OpenAI has jumped from the O1 model to something called O3, which is now almost super intelligence, where it's competing with the top 100 humans in problem solving in certain domains. And so this was a big announcement just before Christmas. I think it was on like the 20th of December or something. And it got a little bit lost in the news cycle. So this is the frontier area where it's solving these very high problems, and they're putting it at like an IQ of over 200. And the challenge with those is it's extremely expensive. So they didn't really publish how much it cost, but if you did the reverse engineering, it was something like every prompt that you sent in. So every time you asked it a question, it cost about $3,000. And if you really want to get that super answer, I think they were spending upwards of like $1 million per answer. So it's not very approachable for mere mortals, but it is interesting to see where it's going. Anyway, we'll talk more about that after. All right, next topic is ChatGPT Search has now been officially released. So it was an experimental feature through the fall, but in December they've made it official. And so the benefit of this is you can now bring real-time information from the internet into your conversations with ChatGPT. And so this is a competitor to Google, where now you don't have to go Google something, the information from there and put it into your conversations. That actually happens within the conversation and then can be used as part of your analysis. And there's some similar tools out there. There's one called Perplexity that some of you may have used. But the difference here is that if you've got a ChatGPT account, you can now have that search directly native in the app. I saw a question from Sarah. Is the energy requirement so expensive with ChatGPT O3? It's not so much, I guess it's indirectly the energy. It's actually the computing resources. So with O3, it's actually spending hours of computing time to try to figure out the answer. Maybe longer than that. Like it's a very long thinking time, and it's basically chugging away on the computer at a data center to go and try and generate that answer. And we'll talk, and when we get to the reasoning models in a little bit, we'll talk about how they work and why that happens that way. So Sarah, I'll come back to a little bit more after. And Bezad says, I recently used ChatGPT Projects to create an AI-assisted personal journal. Okay, cool. And thank you for sharing that post there, Bezad. All right. Any other questions or comments before I move to the next set of news items? No, okay, let's move on. All right, so the other big bunch of announcements was around multimedia content creation. So OpenAI had another big announcement where they've released something called Sora, which is their AI-powered video generation tool. And what's really neat about this is that you can generate video not just from text, but also from uploading images and other video where it will remix and generate content from that. And it's giving you photorealistic video content. So the screenshot there is an example from one of their videos. So the link there, you can check that out and get more information on how Sora works and sign up. I will say, just as a disclaimer, this multimedia stuff's really interesting to me, but I'm far and away not an expert in this space. So it's I will only touch lightly on it, but if anyone wants to jump in with their experiences with it, happy to chat about those as well. The other announcement again was Google. So OpenAI and Google had these big months in December where they announced a lot of stuff. And so Google, their multimedia tools, they released something called Whisk, which is where it's image to image generation. So you can upload an image that's like your inspiration, and then be able to use that to remix into new imagery. And so you can combine images and remix them in different ways, or start with like a sketch and have it flesh it out. And then they've got their tool called Imagine 3, which is competing with things like Midjourney and Dolly that are creating high quality images. And then VO2 is their video generation, which competes with Sora and some of the other I think it's Runway and some of the other video generation tools. So those are very cool, worth checking out. And then one that I really think is neat is World Labs has created a 3D AI tool where you can take an image, a two-dimensional image, and then interact with it in a 3D environment. So it actually goes and expands and turns it into an environment where you can now go and move around, and it will extend the kind of the edges of your image. So it's almost like being in an immersive video game with this imagery. So very neat demos at their link there. So definitely check that out if you're interested in that. So I'm sure I've missed some tool announcements in the multimedia space. Does anyone else have any things that they've seen that they're really excited about? No? Okay.
Yeah, James, can I? Hi.
Hi, Maria.
It's me. I was just going to write in the chat that I've been testing out HeyGen and Synthesia to create videos, trying to figure out how to do videos for my own course. And I don't want to be the subject necessarily speaking. So is this similar to Sora?
Sora's more, I actually don't know exactly how it works. I don't know if you can give it a script and get it to read the script. I think it's more for like cinematography type stuff, or you want to do a clip of a scene. But I haven't really played around with it, so I don't know it very well. Does anyone else on the call use these tools and have any feedback from Maria?
No. Yeah, it'd be great. I've just been playing around with them, and you know, they're quite different, but it's interesting. It's amazing what you can do now. So
yeah, so HeyGen and Synthesia are really good for like AI avatar. And so Maria, if you didn't want to create, like have yourself be the avatar, you can probably create imagery from one of these images, like Imagine 3 or one of the other image tools, and then use that as your starting point to be able to make an avatar from that.
Yeah, I'll look at that. That's great, because they do have ones you can use in both Synthesia and HeyGen, but I might want a different one. I'll try that. Thanks.
Yeah. It's been many months, but I tried doing that with HeyGen. I created a cartoon version of myself, and it was so-so. But it was a fun experiment to try. All right. And Maria, if there are several people who work in the animation industry and the film industry that are part of the WhatsApp group, so if you want to ask your question there, that you might be able to get some more guidance around that. All right. So let's move on to the last bit here. So the last few collections here are more kind of a grab bag of different things that I thought were interesting. So the first one is around AI automated coding. So in the development space, this is one of the fastest moving spaces where AI agents are starting to be embraced around automated software development. So it's a little outside of our typical discussions for Circles of AI, but I did some experimentation over the break. So I have a software development background, and so I was curious about what the capabilities are there. And so what's interesting is that there's a bunch of tools that are popping up that are great at helping you get a front-end working app. So something like a React app, if you're familiar with it, which is basically your single window applications. So if you're familiar with, you're going to a website and you're interacting with something and it's updating as you're doing things, that would be a React app. So you can generate this. Anyone can go and use things like v0.dev is one of them. There's a Lovable is another similar one. And there's a major one that I'm forgetting, but anyway, it doesn't really matter. Anyway, there's a bunch of these things that are able to give you a kickstart and build you an app. What Gemini Code Assist is doing is there's these tools now that are actually the assistants to help the software developers, where instead of the developers writing software, they are writing the high-level concepts, the architecture of software and the components, and the code is all being generated by the AI. And so it's really empowering people to be able to step back and look at and saying, how do I, use building blocks to build this, and actually have the AI do the heavy lifting of figuring out how to put the code together. So there's lots of stuff that I've seen in the space. It's fast moving, and it's quite an amazing frontier space in this. But especially with these new reasoning models, it's moving very quickly. So you'll probably hear more about AI agents, especially in the software development space. Carly says, anyone know of a quiz app? I've just done a research study that revealed 4 personas I'd love to build a quiz for my website. Well, Carly, you know what's funny is that's what I was building over the break, is I was doing a AI readiness quiz. So let's chat afterwards, because that's exactly what I've been building. All right. So anyway, Gemini Code Assist is really neat because it's empowering this, and is now another one of these tools that are out there. Another thing that's really interesting is happening is, you may have heard about Apple's foray into the AI space, where they've created something that they're calling Apple Intelligence. I love that they borrowed the AI term. So the concept there is that you're using these AI tools on the device itself. And so it's embedded, you're not having to share your information externally, so it has more security and privacy, and you're able to get faster answers directly on your device. The way they're doing that is they have to use something called a small language model, as opposed to the large language model that are ChatGPT and Gemini and these others. So Microsoft has been working in this space as well, and they have something called 5.4, which is one of these small models. And what they've been able to show with it is that they can actually do some of this complex reasoning like these other reasoning models, but with a small version. The other thing is they open sourced this recently. So this is quite a big deal, because this is now something that allows for the community of builders to go and incorporate and start to use and explore how to do this without having to rely on the cloud providers like Amazon and Microsoft and Google and others. You can now do it on your own devices with lower powered equipment. So this opens up a different set of types of solutions that can be brought to market. It's a little bit outside of, again, what Circles of AI typically talks about, but this is something to kind of keep an eye on, because people will be building products around this that are embedded into hardware and stuff. And then a cool application a little bit outside of the typical things we talk about is Google has created a new weather forecasting model. And so this is more in the machine learning space around prediction, but they're able to create state-of-the-art weather predictions that are competing with the best and most capable NOAA, the National, what does NOAA stand for? Anyway, they're the US weather forecasting group. But they're competing now with the capabilities of those weather forecasts and are able to do that. And given the news about the LA fires and other climate-related weather challenges, this is going to be really important. So you can start to see how these tools are now being incorporated into really important applications. So that was a neat news announcement as well. All right. So I will I'll pause there, and I'm sure I've missed some important announcements, but I just want to do a kind of a quick around the horn for the things that I thought were interesting from December. But is there anything else that people saw that you'd like to share or bring up for discussion?
Yeah, actually, I can add one more. For me, the most interesting one was another product from Google that was a quantum chip called the Willow, and that is capable of doing the computations that our current supercomputers can do in 10 to the power of 25 years. And just combine that with what you said earlier, James, about like the O3 model being so expensive. I think in the future, combining the quantum computing and the much bigger models, it's going to be revolutionary, I guess.
Yeah. So what Behzad's talking about is there's been a lot of work in the hardware space. So NVIDIA's kind of the poster child of creating new hardware, new computer chips that are able to power these AI models. There's also been a bunch of breakthroughs recently in an adjacent area around quantum computing. And in quantum computing, it's a completely different technique for doing computing that doesn't use zeros and ones. It's a different technology. What it does is it has a vastly more capable and more powerful way of doing computing. So as those are emerging, and then the advancements with AI, these are starting to come together to really push what's possible. Now, we're starting to talk about a little bit into the science fiction-y space, some of the quantum things that came out in December, where people were talking about multiple universes and stuff. Kind of gets a little mind-bending and a little crazy, so it's why I left them out, because it's a little outside of some of the things that we typically discuss here. But yes, very exciting kind of stuff that's pushing the boundaries of almost science fiction. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Anything else that people have seen in the news cycle that they're curious about or want to discuss? Yeah, don't be shy. All right, well, why don't we move on then to the next part of the session? Okay, so what for the next part, we're going to do a bit more of a deep dive into how the reasoning models work. So I'm not going to get into the theory or the science behind this, just talk about it at a high level of kind of generally how they work. So the things that are unique about it, I'll start with the characteristics of why these matter. So the features that you get with a reasoning model compared to a traditional LLM, large language model, is that instead of just giving you kind of a single answer where I'm going to anthropomorphize the AIs a little bit here. So imagine you're talking to somebody and you give them a little bit of context about a problem you have, and then they immediately jump to the conclusion of what the answer is. That's how a traditional AI works, is they're only able to use the very narrow context of what you've given them, and then they kind of just react and give you an answer. What the reasoning models do is that they actually, before they respond, they try to decompose the question that you've asked and look at try to understand what the objective is. So they're trying to generate the right context to be able to understand your question and then collect the right information to respond to it properly. Now, the main difference there and where this comes from is things around, there's been prompting techniques that have been developed over the last couple of years. One of them is called chain of thought prompting. Now, what this means is that you're going through a series of questions where you're asking the AI over and over again to explain its reasoning and take you step by step through the thinking process. That's one of the techniques that's used here. And then another one is around reflection on the answer. So looking at, I've generated an answer. Does this answer actually address the question that was there and meet the objectives? And if not, revise it and refine it until you get to something that actually answers the question. There's more to the science around this, but generally those are the main pieces that fit together. And so what happens with these reasoning models is it's taking that first answer and then it's saying, review this answer you come up with something better, and it continues to do that and refine it over time, while also going through a step-by-step breakdown of the problem. And so what this does is it moves from having just general knowledge and intelligence by making larger models, and it moves now into like running it multiple times, which means that there's more computing effort required. And this is where the expense comes from running these models, is because you're basically, instead of having a single prompt and interacting with the AI once, in the background, it's actually asking questions over and over again. And so each one of those times, the computer is generating a response and using computing power. And so what happens with something like the O3 model that we talked about, that's so expensive, is because it's doing this over and over and over again for hours until it generates the answer. But because it's looked at its entire knowledge base and looked at that over and over in refinement, it's able to actually come up with a very, very good answer. So there's this trade-off of computing time with quality of answers. So what does this all mean? What it means is that the features of the reasoning models is it allows you to do advanced reasoning and solve more complex problems than traditionally you've been able to do with an LLM. It allows for putting this into multi-step workflows where you don't necessarily need to chain together multiple calls to the AI. You just ask once, but you give it a set of instructions that it follows. And it also, this is the big empowerment of AI agents. So you can start to use these for autonomous operations, where instead of instructing and directing the AI to do this, then do this, then do this, you now give it an objective and say, you reason through the process to get to that objective, and you've been delegated that task, and it needs to go figure it out. And then going back to the more human in the loop aspects, it's really great for strategic decision support. And when we do the demo in a minute, I'll show how that works and some of that aspect in action. So in terms of benefits to your business, enhanced strategic planning is one that we'll demo today. And it's immediately available that anybody can access this. Things that are coming quickly at us are autonomous operations. And as I mentioned, the AI coding agents are kind of right on the cutting edge right now of things that are being put into operation. And then advanced customer support. So the first generation of AI chatbots that are doing customer support, we're great at being able to do like a tier 1 customer support. So solving simple problems that, pulling information from like a frequently asked questions database or something like that, really good at that. But it couldn't handle anything where you needed to interact a little bit more and figure out how to do like returns or refunds and things like that. But these tools can now do that. And so there's a lot of stuff that's coming. They're starting to get incorporated into AI-powered tools and platforms that are out there, whether it's your CRM, your ERP systems, or customer support systems. But we're just kind of on the cusp of that, and I think you'll see a lot of these things rolling out in the next few months. All right, I'll pause there for a minute to see if there's any questions before I go into some of the demos. Anyone have any questions or random thoughts about agents or reasoning models? No, all right, let's go on then. Okay, so in the demo here, what I'm going to show is we're going to use both ChatGPT with the ON model, as well as the Google Gemini thinking model. And so in the slide deck that I shared in the chat, which I will share I'll share it again in case any of the latecomers missed it. There's the slides there. So in there, those links take you to the tools that we're using, and I'll demonstrate how those work. So if we have time, I'd like to cover all 3 of these demos, but we'll see how it goes, and there's a lot of questions and stuff. So what we're, at a high level, what we're going to do is we're going to look at a strategic market expansion where we've got a small clothing retailer, and they want to go and expand to a new town with their business. And we'll look at like, they've got a bunch of different options. How should they make a decision around choosing which location to go to? And then the second scenario is a pricing strategy optimization for a fitness app that has flat monthly pricing, and they want to explore using different pricing models to see if they can increase their revenue and some of the churn that they have. And then the third scenario is around customer segmentation for a home decor online store. And so they've got a bunch of different customer segments, but they're not sure how to segment them and be able to customize and personalize their campaigns for them. So we're going to see how these models handle these scenarios. Okay, sorry, just going to pop out of there. Okay, so our first scenario, we're going to use a tool called AI Studio. So this is, it's a little bit like ChatGPT or Claude, but a little bit different. So I'm going to do a quick overview of what it is and how it works, so you can be familiar with it, and then I'll explore how to do it. So what AI Studio is this is a tool that's meant for developers who are developing prompts for the Google models. So it gives you access to all the different models here. It's a list of the Gemini 1.5 models, which are the older generation, and then the newer Gemini 2.0, and then some other experimental ones called Gemma. And so we're going to end up using this Gemini 2.0 Flash Thinking Experimental. It's got a nice pithy name. So when you hover over it, it gives you some of the information about the model. So we talked about context window and what that means. So this input and output, the context window here is about 32,000 tokens. So this is a fairly small, I'll call it short-term memory. But what it does is when you have that information, it's able to like process that and work on it. I mentioned in the news updates that there's these other ones, and so for example, the Flash Experimental here. Where is it here? This one has 1 million tokens that it can use in terms of input. And I believe that there is this 1206 model has 2 million tokens. So these are very large short-term contexts, like short-term memory, and you can upload videos and things into this to process. So yeah, this is fun to experiment with. And by the way, this is all free. This is open to anybody. All you have to do is sign up with your Google account and you get access into this. All right, so we are going to use the thinking model and we are going to create a new prompt. Okay, and then now I am going to hide these guys. Okay, so these other parts, you can ignore the system instructions. If you want, what this does is it gives an overview of telling the model how you want the response formatted. So it's kind of a general high level of instruction, and then your specific instructions go into the prompt at the bottom here. So we're just going to use the bottom part and ignore the system instructions for now. All right. So now what we're going to do is the scenario that we're working through is we're going to imagine that we're running a successful clothing store in downtown Victoria and are considering expanding to a new town within BC. We have a few potential neighboring towns in mind, and we want and we have some basic data about our current customers and as well as the areas that we're going to expand to. And what we want to do is use the tool to help us decide where to open our next store and what we can do to to maximize the return on investment. Okay, so I've got a couple pieces here. I'm going to start with that contextual information for the prompt. And hopefully that's not too small, you can see that okay, but I'll just read it out loud here. So we've got a small retail business in Victoria that sells women's clothing. We want to expand our operations. We need to select an optimal new location to expand to. I'm going to share some additional information about our operations and the projections for the other locations. And what I want this to do is I want it to analyze the locations and recommend the best one for expansion and explain the reasoning for why. Okay. The other thing I'd like to include in the prompts is directions to ask for any additional details. So you can either try to give all the information to the tool when you first prompt it, but often you may not know what you're missing. So this part of the prompt gets it to actually look at what you've given it first, and then tell you if there's anything missing that would be helpful for it to give you an answer. So this is a nice way to figure out what you're missing. I also ask it to take its time and think through the problem carefully. This is that chain of thought processing that I mentioned before. It should do this automatically, but I still like to add that in just as a reminder. And then I also want it to review the final answer before responding and then make any revisions. So again, that's asking it to do that reflection on, did you give me the right answer, the best answer you could to the question I asked? So these are just reminders. Okay, and now I'm going to add that additional context for the information here. And I apologize, this doesn't paste very nicely and it's hard to read, but I'll try to just cover it here. So we have a store in downtown Victoria, and we're doing about $10,000 a week in average revenue. And our demographics for the store are women who are between 25 and 40 with a median income of about $60,000 a year. And then the new locations we're looking at are Maple Ridge, where the population is about 90,000 people, median income is about 55K, and giving it the distance from Victoria. And then Kamloops, so again, population, income, and distance. And then finally Nanaimo. Okay, so we're looking at 3 locations with this information, and let's see what it comes back with. So you can see here, it says it's thinking. And I'll go back and I'll expand what it was doing there. But now you can see it's giving us a big answer here. So let's walk through what we've got. So first off, what did it do in this thinking step? So what it did is it tried to understand the goal, and then it identified, it looked at what are the key decision factors that impact the recommendation it's trying to make. What gaps are there in the data? So what does it really need to be able to actually answer the question? So things like competition, the leasing costs of the locations, are the right customers available in that area, accessibility and economy, your brand, logistics. So lots of things that we really should include here, more than just like how much money do people make and how many people are there. So we're missing some key information. And then it does an initial analysis and then prioritizes some factors and stuff. Okay, so let's look at the actual response it gives us. So it's saying, yep, it can help us, but it really is missing some important information, but it can give an initial analysis. So its first reaction is that from a population perspective, Nanaimo has the largest population, so it's a bigger customer base. The income is best in Kamloops, and the distance for Maple Ridge and Nanaimo is significantly closer than Kamloops. But it needs more information, so it's just really kind of guessing with that. So to get better information, it's now telling us, okay, you're actually missing important things here. You really need this to be able to go answer that question. So what's the retail landscape look like? What are the target demographics for those regions? Is the economy growing or shrinking? And what are the fashion trends? Maybe the clothing that people wear in those areas aren't the same. Then you got operational considerations and some sales projections. So it wants this additional information to be able to use that to actually make a recommendation. Well, frankly, I'm at an early stage. I don't actually have that information, so I'm just going to say, sorry, I don't have that. Please make a recommendation anyway, but base it on a set of assumptions and tell me what those assumptions are as part of your recommendation. So let's see what it does. All right, so it's doing what I'm asking, but it's bolded here that it really isn't a very good answer because it doesn't have enough data. So it would really like to have that additional information. But what it's going to do is it looks at each of the locations and comes up with pros and cons, and then states what its assumptions are. So, customer preference and costs and market saturation, etc. And then ultimately gives me a recommendation. So Nanaimo appears to be the most promising. And then why? So it has the largest customer base of those three choices. It's reasonably close to Victoria. Now, I didn't tell it, it doesn't know automatically that Victoria is on an island, Nanaimo's on the same island, and Maple Ridge and Kamloops are not. So it's not taking into account that. But if it did, then it wouldn't. It still made the right decision, which is interesting. And then gives reasons about why the other locations are less favorable. And then the nice thing that I really like is that it says, this is not the final answer. You really need to do more research. And this information is what you need to be able to actually get a good answer. So if you've used ChatGPT 4.0 or Claude or these other tools, and you've had that experience of asking these questions, you can see that the thoroughness of this answer and the amount of detail and thinking, this is much more like an advisor or an analyst that's giving you that guidance to be able to make a good decision. Whereas if you were to give it to one of the kind of existing non-reasoning models, it would just give you an answers that go to, it would probably still give you the right answer. It would probably still go to Nanaimo, but it wouldn't tell you why, and it wouldn't really tell you what assumptions it made to get there. And so if you just blindly followed that, you may not actually understand why it made that decision, or what the implications are of other things that you should consider. So I'll pause there for a minute. Any questions about this demo and what's possible? Any thoughts? Let's stop presenting. Let's just have a little bit of a discussion here.
Quick question, James. Do you think that the tool is more important or the prompt engineering is more important to get to the best answer the quickest?
Well, it's a combination. So all of these tools are garbage in, garbage out. Mm-hmm. So if you don't ask the right kinds of questions, then you end up going down the wrong path. So, but I would say it's the same thing as if you went to a strategic advisor and asked them, where should I go and open a new location, and you only gave them the 3 locations and the median income of your customers as the demographic information, you're probably not going to get a very good answer either. The difference would be is that your advisor would say, well, you're forgetting competition, operational cost, logistics, and all these other things. If you don't prompt the tools right, it won't come back and ask you those questions automatically. So that's why I like to add in there, what information am I missing? That is one line will save you a lot of grief, is if you say, what am I missing? What am I forgetting? Will often save your bacon if you're using this for decision making.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Maria's asked in the chat here, can you upload a PDF of information too? Yes, you can. So this little plus, oops, I'm not sharing my screen. Let me share my screen again. So I put everything into the context of the conversation here, but there's this little plus button here where you can integrate this into your Google account, so you can connect your drive and be able to share files directly from your drive, or if they're not on the drive, you can upload it in there. You can actually record audio, so you can talk to it. Similar to ChatGPT, you can have a voice prompt, so you can do that here. Which I don't know what camera does. Oh, actually allows you to use your camera. So I'm not going to do that, but if you can use it for a recording device and bring information in, so you can share your screen and show that as part of this. So there's lots of different inputs that you can put in as well. This is actually one of the things that's kind of nice, is that it allows you a little more flexibility than ChatGPT, because their O1 model isn't multimodal. It doesn't allow you to upload all these things. You have to put everything into the text chat itself. So this is a little more flexible, but we'll explore O1 in a minute. Maria asks, could you download stats from government or retail sites to add the info? Absolutely, yes. So you can pull a bunch of different resources together and upload them into here. Just remembering though that for the reasoning model, it only has a 32,000 token memory. And what I mean by that is in the token count, so just the text that I put in there was about 4,000 tokens. So if you upload files, it's not going to be a very big file that you can put in for the reasoning model. That being said, if you want to go and put a big file in and then summarize it, you can use one of the other models that have these big context windows, get it to read the whole document or view the video or the audio, and then get it to summarize that information and say, output this as a summary that you can then use as input to the thinking model. So I will sometimes chain those steps together to be able to condense the information and summarize it in a particular way that I can use in a second step. All right.
I have a question about that. So actually kind of similar on a, hi James. If you were to use, like, I'll take a simple model like a SWOT to grab a bunch of information about a competitive landscape, would you build the SWOT in the reasoning model, or would you build it in the other model and then bring it to the reasoning model to start applying to decision making?
That is a great segue into my second demo. So it has some competitive analysis between other apps. So why don't we actually go to that one and I'll show you how to do that. Right. Any other questions before we move on from this? Oh, Suzanne asked in the chat, at what point will this model gain access to the internet and search this info for you as opposed to switching platforms? For the Google ones, I'm not sure. You would think that the Google models would be able to search the internet, but I'm not actually sure. With ChatGPT, it can, but again, you have to kind of, the way that the models are working right now, it's a little bit convoluted how you get the information in there because of some of the ways that they limit the information. And I'll explain what that means in just a second when we go into the ChatGPT side. Okay. All right, so let's move over to ChatGPT now. So actually, Suzanne, maybe I'll just answer your question directly here. So when you're using the O1 model, which is the advanced reasoning, this is the ChatGPT Search. You see that this icon is unavailable. So with the O1 model, it's not compatible with Search. So the way you'd have to use it is you'd have to go to the 4.0 model, use Search, find the information, ask for a summary of the information, and then you actually need to move that into a second conversation with O1. I think this will probably get updated in the next couple of months, but for now it's annoying. It doesn't make for a very nice workflow because you have to copy and paste things between. But I expect that, you know, this is a very common use case, and I expect that they'll address that. But I don't know when it will happen. All right, so let's go to the second scenario now then. So the second scenario is that so we're going to imagine that we have a successful fitness app that offers various workout plans and wellness content. And then we're going to charge a flat monthly fee, but we're considering switching to a different pricing model. And I'm just noticing the time, so I'm going to actually go through this fairly quickly. All right, so let's give the context. So we have a subscription-based fitness app. We want to optimize the pricing strategy to maximize revenue. So we currently charge a flat monthly fee. Want to change it to try to maximize that, but also make sure that we don't cannibalize our business. We want to explain the potential impact on revenue and customer retention. Okay. All right, and so I'm going to paste in the information we need here. So in this case, we have some information. So we're going to put in the current pricing model. We charge $20 a month. We have 5,000 subscribers, so we're making about 100K a month. We're churning 5%. And now we've got some competitors here. So FitLife, Health Plus, and then also some information about our user segments. So there's 3 segments: casual users, enthusiastic users, and premium. Oops, sorry, jumping around here. The casual are price sensitive. They're just using basic capabilities. Enthusiastic are kind of our core customers. And then we've got potential to upsell to premium. So let's look at what it does. Okay, so this one, so spend some time thinking here. Now, what's interesting is it didn't ask us for additional information, although I didn't add that to the prompt, but it's jumping straight to an answer. So Ian, to your point, like we do need to make sure that we ask it to identify anything we're missing. So it's going to tier pricing, and it has 3 different tiers it's recommending, 4 actually. And then using annual subscriptions with discounts, some target promotions, and some other things here. And then, Lauren, what we could do here now is for the next step, we could say, consider the competition. Please provide SWOT analysis to compare the tiered service levels with the competitors. Now, we don't really have enough information here, but it's still going to go and try and do it. And we'll see what it comes back with. So obviously you wouldn't want to do this without more detailed competitor analysis. And this is where you may use the web search to go do the research and collect it, get that competitive information, and then feed that back into the model to then be able to do the SWOT. But it will actually look at it and build a table. So it gives you, didn't build a table here, but we can ask it for that. And I'm going to switch out of O1 because we don't actually need it, that power for it, but I'm going to say, please create a human readable table for the SWOT. All right, so it's going to go and compare this here now. So you can stay within the tool and be able to do multiple steps in here without having to just copy and paste in and out. I would say that depending on how you want to do this and bring the information in, you may need to do this as multiple steps though, to be able to get a good answer out of it. Okay. So I'll stop there because we're just about the top of the hour here, and see if there's any questions before we wrap up. Anything else that anyone wants to cover, or any quick questions?
I wonder if, like as a really high level takeaway, could you give us a quick synopsis of like when you would use the strategic thinking model versus the other model? Like what are the core, let's say, handful of easy examples?
Yeah, so I typically use the strategic models as a starting point. So my workflow would be, I use, I'll talk about ChatGPT here. I use the 4O model to go do research and collecting when I have a specific task I'm doing. So search for information about FitLife. Go in and go to their website and give me their key features. And then I'll collect that information, and then we'll usually copy those into a separate document or put it as part of a prompt. Then I'll come back and I'll say, I want to go do a pricing analysis for my competitors. And then I'll switch to the O1 model. I'll put in that context like we just did, but I'll include all of the competitive information as part of that and paste it into the prompt. So now I'm not trying to upload the files because it doesn't work with O1. It can only work with the text that's in the conversation, but I'll fill it all in, and now it has context to be able to go answer that. And I will also use that one-liner of, is there anything I'm missing? And if that also helps, because it will then prompt me for additional information that I can paste into the prompt, or sorry, into the conversation. Then when I get to the end, I'll switch to things again back to 4.0 to create a SWOT analysis table, or to create a what's the step-by-step plan that I should do to address this, where you don't necessarily need it to go and think deeply about it. You're just asking it to do a task for you. So think of it switching between you're delegating something where you want it to help you achieve an objective, you'll use reasoning. If you have a specific task you're directing it to use the straight, like the standard models. All right. Well, I'm sorry I went a couple minutes over there today, but yeah, thank you for your time today, and yeah, hopefully you got some value from that. Okay, well, thank you, everyone. Have a great Friday, and enjoy your weekend.
Thanks very much.
All right, take care.